Let's see if you can even begin to solve this. Professor Reed's voice cut sharply through the hum of the lecture hall, eyes scanning the room with a smirk that barely concealed his condescension, the students shifting uncomfortably in their seats as whispers spread like wildfire. Emily Parker, sitting quietly in the back row, adjusted the hem of her simple gray cardigan, her chestnut hair tucked neatly behind her ears, fingers tapping lightly against the edge of her notebook as she observed the professor's movements. The way his tailored blue suit and polished shoes seemed to dominate the polished oak floor, every detail radiating authority and intimidation. Yet she remained still, breathing evenly, eyes calm and focused, scanning the complex equation projected on the board, a cascade of derivatives and integrals that made other students flinch. She could hear the subtle gasp of a classmate realizing the difficulty, the chalk scraping as the professor turned sharply toward a whiteboard, pointer raised, declaring this was impossible and expecting her to fail, expecting the laughter, expecting the embarrassment. But Emily's mind was already tracing pathways she had practiced in quiet hours, recalling late nights in her small apartment, self-teaching advanced calculus while the city slept outside her window, the soft hum of streetlights through the blinds, the methodical scribbling in her notebooks, every theorem and proof internalized and ready to emerge when called upon. The camera would linger on her steady hands, unclenching and reaching for her pencil as she lifted it with poise, the room's energy shifting subtly, a tension in the air that made every inhalation feel heavier, the students leaning slightly forward in anticipation, some out of curiosity, others out of fear that the professor's prediction would come true. Emily's eyes met the projection, tracing the limits and summations with a practiced ease that contrasted sharply with her quiet appearance, the narrative of her ordinary exterior masking a mind extraordinary in precision and clarity, a mind that saw patterns and relationships in numbers as if they were music, harmonies in calculus waiting to be played, and the professor, oblivious to the depth of her understanding, tapped his pen impatiently against his notes, expecting hesitation, expecting fumbling, expecting failure, while Emily Parker prepared to transform his doubt into astonishment, to turn a public display of condescension into a demonstration of poise, intellect, and silent command, the first steps of her solution forming effortlessly in her mind as the murmurs of the classroom faded, leaving only the soft scratch of pencil on paper and the suspenseful hum of impending revelation. Emily Parker rose slowly from her seat, the soft shuffle of her shoes on the polished classroom floor barely audible against the hushed whispering of her classmates. Her eyes never leaving the complex equation sprawled across the board, every line of derivatives and integrals forming a challenge that had made others recoil with uncertainty. Yet she moved with deliberate calm, reaching the front of the lecture hall with a quiet grace, taking a deep breath as her hand hovered over the chalk, recalling in her mind the countless hours spent alone with textbooks and notes, the soft glow of her desk lamp at midnight illuminating her meticulous calculations, each formula reviewed and committed to memory, her mind tracing connections, patterns, and shortcuts that made the impossible seem inevitable. She picked up the chalk and began to write with precise, confident strokes, the classroom air thick with anticipation, students leaning forward instinctively as if drawn to the unfolding of a secret performance, the professor's eyes narrowing slightly, the smirk fading as he watched her start to dismantle the problem methodically, every step building on the previous with clarity and elegance. Emily's inner voice guiding her, a quiet assurance honed from years of patient study and unwavering dedication. The numbers and symbols aligning perfectly under her control, the chalk tapping softly against the board, a rhythm that seemed to hypnotize the room into stillness. Each calculation a testament to her understanding, to the depth of knowledge concealed beneath her unassuming exterior, her movements calm and measured, the tension in the lecture hall mounting subtly as her solution began to take shape, a wave of realization spreading among the students as they noticed the accuracy and speed with which she worked, Professor Reed's eyebrows lifting imperceptibly, a flicker of doubt crossing his face as he recognized the skill before him. Emily's gaze steady, her posture upright, yet relaxed, conveying a silent confidence that contrasted sharply with the initial expectation of failure. the room seemingly holding its collective breath, the air charged with the quiet energy of discovery and astonishment. Emily completing the first part of her calculation, stepping back slightly to assess, then continuing seamlessly into the next sequence, each line of work reinforcing the narrative of mastery, of competence that had been waiting patiently in the shadows, every student watching, captivated, unable to look away. The realization dawning that the quiet woman they had underestimated was orchestrating an elegant solution with a poise that left the classroom suspended in awe. The soft echo of chalk on board punctuating each perfect step, the tension coiling and releasing with each precise mark. And the professor, for the first time, losing the composure he had relied upon, recognizing the unfolding brilliance and wondering silently how he had misjudged her so completely. Emily Parker paused for a moment, her eyes scanning the final set of integrals as if reading a familiar story, the classroom completely silent except for the soft scratching of chalk on the board and the faint hum of the overhead projector, the students leaning forward instinctively, sensing that they were witnessing something extraordinary unfold in real time. Professor Reed shifted in his polished leather chair at the edge of the lectern, fingers tapping lightly against his notes, his expression flickering between disbelief and curiosity, unable to conceal the growing realization that his expectation of failure was dissolving before him, while Emily, calm and composed, traced each calculation with deliberate precision, her internal rhythm guiding the sequence flawlessly. Recalling every late night and early morning spent memorizing theorems and working through complex problems alone in her apartment, the soft glow of the desk lamp highlighting the meticulous notes she had taken, the patterns of calculus etched into her mind like a symphony of logic and clarity, each step unfolding naturally and effortlessly, the students now holding their collective breath as the solution came together piece by piece, the board transforming into a tapestry of accurate, elegant equations, Emily's quiet confidence radiating from her posture and her focused gaze. The air in the lecture hall thick with anticipation, every eye fixed on her hands and the precise movements of chalk. Professor Reed's usual composure slipping further as he watched the impossible become achievable, the murmurs of amazement barely audible yet spreading through the rows of seats like ripples across a still pond. Emily completing each segment with seamless fluidity, connecting the integrals and derivatives in ways that revealed the depth of her understanding. The students exchanging astonished glances as they realized that the quiet woman they had underestimated was demonstrating mastery far beyond what anyone had imagined, the faint echo of chalk punctuating the rhythm of her reasoning, a subtle smile crossing her lips as she prepared to write the final solution. The room poised in a perfect stillness, the tension and suspense reaching their peak, and Professor Reed, for the first time, caught in a moment of complete, stunned recognition, understanding that the narrative of underestimation had been utterly reversed. Emily Parker standing as a beacon of composure and intellect in the midst of a room that could not believe the brilliance quietly concealed within her. Emily Parker stepped back from the chalkboard, her posture still composed, and the lecture hall seemed to exhale as every student processed the solution she had just completed, the once murmuring classroom now enveloped in a profound silence, the hum of the air conditioning and distant footsteps in the corridor fading into the background as all attention focused on her and the intricate equations perfectly aligned on the board, the camera lingering on the sharp clarity of each line, the elegance of her logic, and the subtle confidence in her expression. Professor Reed standing frozen with his hands slightly raised, the pen he had tapped against his notes moments before now idle, his eyes wide with realization that his expectation of failure had been entirely wrong. The students exchanging astonished glances, whispers beginning to stir as they recognized the extraordinary mastery Emily had exhibited, the soft echo of chalk against the board punctuating the room, each sound emphasizing the precision and care in her work. Emily's mind continuing to review the solution internally, visualizing each step she had taken while remaining outwardly calm. The classroom bathed in a soft glow from the overhead lights reflecting off the polished wooden floor, amplifying the dramatic contrast between her unassuming appearance and the intellectual prowess she had revealed. The professor taking a slow step forward, eyes tracing the completed work with disbelief, the air thick. With the tension of suspended expectation finally met with undeniable skill, Emily's breathing steady, composed, as she subtly adjusted her cardigan and allowed a faint, controlled smile to play at the corners of her lips, the students leaning closer to the board, some still wide-eyed, some nodding in quiet admiration. While Professor Reed's usual authority and control seemed momentarily diminished as he silently acknowledged the depth of her understanding, the room holding the collective realization that the quiet, simple woman they had underestimated had just demonstrated a level of intellect that few could match. The energy in the lecture hall shifting from anticipation to awe, a hushed reverence settling over the group, and Emily Parker standing at the center of it all, calm, collected, and radiant with the quiet satisfaction of having transformed a public challenge into an undeniable display of her genius, leaving the audience suspended in the moment, captivated and eager to see what she might accomplish next. The room remained utterly still as Emily Parker lowered her chalk, the intricate calculations now complete, the final answer gleaming across the board with immaculate precision, each integral and derivative perfectly aligned, a testament to hours of quiet study and relentless dedication that had gone unnoticed by everyone in the room until this moment. Professor Reed stood frozen, lips parted slightly. The authoritative aura he carried moments ago replaced by a stunned acknowledgement that the challenge he had issued as a mockery had instead become a showcase of brilliance. The students exchanging astonished glances, some whispering softly to one another, others simply staring, unable to process the unexpected mastery before them. The subtle echo of chalk on slate emphasizing the gravity of what had just unfolded, Emily's hands moving with controlled calm as she straightened her posture, taking in the reactions around her, her eyes steady and composed, reflecting the quiet pride and confidence that had grown from years of unseen effort, the soft hum of the classroom lights above mingling with the collective energy of awe and admiration. Professor Reed finally clearing his throat, a small, almost imperceptible nod acknowledging her achievement, the tension and anticipation that had built from the moment he challenged her dissolving into a profound respect, the students leaning slightly forward in their seats, captivated not just by the solution but by the poise and determination Emily had demonstrated, every subtle detail of her demeanor conveying the depth of her intellect and the quiet authority of someone who had prepared meticulously without need for recognition. The air charged with a sense of triumph and revelation, a gentle acknowledgement that appearances could be deceiving, the once skeptical murmurs of classmates replaced with murmurs of approval and astonishment. The camera lingering on Emily's calm expression as she allowed herself a faint, satisfied smile, the kind that carries the quiet power of someone who has turned doubt into awe, and the classroom, now suspended in a hushed reverence, felt the weight of the lesson. That true mastery and confidence are revealed not through arrogance, but through skill, preparation, and the courage to rise when challenged, leaving everyone, including Professor Reed, with the indelible memory of the quiet woman who had transformed an intended humiliation into an extraordinary demonstration of genius. The students remained frozen, their eyes wide as they slowly absorbed the magnitude of what Emily Parker had accomplished, the classroom atmosphere charged with a reverent quiet that made each soft scratch of chalk on the board feel monumental. Professor Reed finally lowering his pen, his usual confident stance diminished as he realized the depth of her intellect, the careful, patient work that had transformed a problem deemed impossible into a flawless solution. Whispers of admiration now threading through the room as one by one, students began to murmur to each other about the elegance and precision of her reasoning, their voices low, hesitant, and tinged with awe. Emily standing tall at the front of the class, her posture composed, her gaze steady, allowing the recognition to wash over her without arrogance, the subtle swell of pride tempered by the quiet dignity she had always carried, every element of her demeanor conveying control and mastery, the soft overhead lights glinting off the polished wooden floor and reflecting across the rows of attentive faces, the air vibrating with the unspoken acknowledgement that the lesson had extended beyond calculus, beyond numbers and formulas, into the realm of patience, perseverance, and the quiet power of disciplined skill. Professor Reed finally clearing his throat and nodding slowly. A silent concession that respect was earned through ability and composure rather than position or expectation, the students leaning in, captivated, some replaying the steps in their minds, others simply absorbing the weight of what had just transpired. Emily adjusting her cardigan with a simple, fluid motion, her eyes sweeping the room briefly before returning to the board, the subtle smile on her lips hinting at more insights yet unseen. The classroom still suspended in that charged quiet. A moment frozen between the end of a challenge and the beginning of a newfound understanding, the soft hum of the air conditioning, punctuating the collective breath of the audience. Emily Parker having turned a moment meant for mockery into a testament of brilliance and calm authority, leaving every observer with the undeniable impression that the quiet, unassuming woman they had underestimated held within her a mastery that demanded acknowledgement. The room holding that awareness, the energy slowly shifting from tension to awe, a lingering beat of silence that felt almost sacred, and the students realizing that the true lesson extended beyond the chalkboard, beyond the equations, into the enduring truth that patience, diligence, and quiet confidence can transform expectation into astonishment, leaving Professor Reed, the students, and the entire lecture hall to reflect on the magnitude of her talent and the lasting impression of respect earned through silent mastery. As Emily Parker took a measured step back, the classroom seemed to vibrate with a silent energy, the students' eyes following her every movement as they processed the transformation of a challenge into a demonstration of extraordinary skill, whispers of astonishment spreading like a gentle current through the rows. Professor Reed shifting slightly in his polished leather shoes, his posture betraying the subtle disbelief that he had underestimated the quiet woman before him. Emily's gaze, sweeping across the room, calm and composed, noting the expressions of awe and respect. Each student caught between admiration and disbelief, the soft hum of the projector blending with the faint echo of chalk on the board, highlighting every perfect line of her solution, her mind already reviewing each step she had taken, the precision of her logic, the clarity of her reasoning, and the seamless flow of her calculations. The classroom lights reflecting softly on the polished wooden floor, casting long shadows that mirrored the contrast between her unassuming exterior and the brilliance she had revealed. The students leaning forward instinctively, captivated, some whispering softly to one another, others simply staring, unable to fully articulate the magnitude of her mastery. Professor Reed finally letting out a controlled breath, a subtle acknowledgement of the skill he had witnessed, the weight of his authority momentarily softened by the undeniable truth of her intellect. Emily, adjusting her cardigan with a fluid motion, the faintest smile crossing her lips as she observed the room, the hushed reverence settling over the lecture hall like a gentle wave. The anticipation and tension now replaced by a quiet respect and understanding that the lesson extended far beyond the numbers on the board, teaching a truth about patience, preparation, and the hidden depth that can reside within the seemingly ordinary. Every student now aware that true mastery and confidence emerge not from outward appearances, but from disciplined study and unwavering determination. The subtle energy in the air palpable, the classroom suspended in a moment of reflection and awe, and Emily Parker, standing with composure and dignity, allowed the recognition of her brilliance to unfold naturally. Her calm presence radiating the lesson that respect is earned through competence, humility, and the quiet confidence to rise when challenged, leaving Professor Reed, the students, and the entire room to absorb the extraordinary demonstration they had just witnessed, a moment that would linger in memory, quietly transforming their understanding of skill, effort, and the power of the underestimated. Emily Parker took a slow, deliberate breath as she turned slightly to face the classroom, the eyes of every student and the professor now fixed entirely on her. The silence, almost tangible, punctuated only by the faint click of a pen dropped onto a notebook somewhere in the back row, her hand resting lightly on the edge of the board, the complex calculations she had completed radiating precision and clarity across the surface. The air thick with a mixture of awe and disbelief, Professor Reed, adjusting his tie, the confident authority he had projected earlier giving way to a rare moment of humility, the students leaning in, murmurs of admiration rippling quietly through the room. Emily's gaze sweeping across the faces, noting the subtle shifts in expression, the widening eyes, the half-smiles of recognition, the unspoken realization that what they had witnessed was more than a solution. It was a display of mastery born from patience, discipline, and quiet confidence, the soft hum of the fluorescent lights above mingling with the muted rustle of papers. The classroom transformed into a space where respect was earned and assumptions challenged. Emily's posture composed yet relaxed, the faint smile on her lips carrying the calm satisfaction of someone who had turned a moment intended for mockery into a triumph of intellect. The subtle rhythm of her breathing grounding the tension and highlighting the contrast between her unassuming exterior and the brilliance she had revealed. Professor Reed taking a hesitant step forward, his voice measured yet unable to disguise the surprise and respect in his tone as he spoke, the students' attention unwavering, some replaying the steps she had taken in their minds, others simply absorbing the quiet authority of her presence, the soft echo of chalk against the board punctuating the room as she adjusted her hand and straightened slightly. The energy in the lecture hall shifting from anticipation to admiration, a collective understanding settling over the room that appearances had been misleading and that true mastery often hides beneath quiet composure. Emily Parker standing at the center of it all, calm, collected, every gesture and glance reflecting the depth of preparation and the unwavering certainty of her knowledge. The students now exchanging glances filled with newfound respect, whispers of astonishment mixing with thoughtful silence. Professor Reed nodding subtly, acknowledging the lesson he had not intended to learn, the room charged with the afterglow of revelation and admiration. Emily's presence a quiet testament to the power of discipline, patience, and intellect. The atmosphere lingering in a moment of profound respect and awe as she allowed the weight of her achievement to resonate through the classroom. Every observer left with the undeniable recognition that the underestimated quiet woman had just redefined their understanding of skill, effort, and the quiet confidence that commands respect. As the final chalk mark settled on the board, Emily Parker stepped back fully, the classroom still holding its collective breath, the weight of astonishment tangible in the air, students glancing at one another with wide eyes and subtle nods. Professor Reed finally lowering his gaze, a quiet acknowledgement of defeat in his expression, the tension that had dominated the room now replaced with a profound, respectful silence. Emily's posture remaining composed, every movement deliberate yet effortless, her calm presence filling the space with a quiet authority that needed no words. The soft overhead lights casting gentle reflections across the polished wooden floor, amplifying the contrast between her unassuming appearance and the extraordinary intellect she had displayed. Whispers of admiration now spreading slowly, quietly, like ripples across a still pond. Some students already replaying the sequence of her calculations in their minds, others simply absorbing the moment, the subtle echo of chalk against the board punctuating the lesson in discipline, preparation, and mastery. Professor Reed adjusting his tie and straightening in place, the confidence he had projected moments before tempered by the undeniable brilliance standing before him. Emily's eyes scanning the room briefly, noting the shifted perspectives, the tentative smiles, the nods of comprehension and newfound respect. The classroom atmosphere transformed into a space where intellect and humility were celebrated over preconceptions and appearances. The gentle hum of the air conditioning blending with the soft shuffle of notebooks and papers as the students began to regain their voices, speaking in low tones of the depth of her understanding, the precision and elegance of her work. The quiet satisfaction evident on Emily's face as she allowed the recognition to settle without fanfare, a subtle smile acknowledging that the moment had been more than a solution to a problem. It had been a lesson in perseverance, diligence, and the power of quiet confidence. Professor Reed taking a slow step forward, the classroom absorbing the gravity of the encounter, the subtle energy in the room reflecting the realization that true skill and respect are earned through mastery and patience rather than outward appearance. Emily Parker standing at the front, calm and composed, a silent beacon of intellect, her achievement lingering in the room like a lasting impression, leaving every student, every observer, with the undeniable understanding that quiet determination and preparation can transform doubt into awe. And the room remained suspended in a reverent stillness, the weight of the lesson echoing softly in each mind, a reminder that mastery and humility together command the deepest respect.